Uy, salta.
Early morning hours of March 25th, 2015, passerby found the severely injured 18-year-old on Cedar Villa Estates Road near Valley Road. She died in hospital.
A belt was located beside Brittany Gargle's body, and police were able to determine that the belt belonged to Ms. Antoine because they saw it in a Facebook photo that had been posted just hours before. She had gotten into an argument with her friend and strangled her. Now, the cause of death was strangulation.
This photo was posted just hours before a murder. Two friends, smiling, unaware that one small detail would become deadly. When 18-year-old Brittany Gargle was found strangled on the side of a road, the police didn't start with suspects. Instead, they started with a selfie. In today's video, we explore the heartbreaking case of Brittany Gargoyle, a lively teenager from Saskatoon whose life ended in the most tragic way. Late on the night of March 23, 2015, just before 1 a.m., Brittany Gago and her best friend Cheyenne took a photo together to capture memories of a fun night out after months of focusing on school. What was meant to be an enjoyable night on the town quickly turned into something far worse. Within hours, one of the girls would never make it home due to a devastating incident. Police spent 3 years searching for justice, and when they finally identified their main suspect, it was not who anyone had expected. Brittany Gago was just 18 years old when the case occurred in the spring of 2015. She was born in 1996 in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. Her mother was Suzanne, and her father was Everett. Although her parents did not stay together during her childhood, Brittany maintained good relationships with both, though she appeared to be especially close to her mother, Suzanne. Brittany seemed to have a positive upbringing in Saskatoon. Her mother was clearly intelligent, and Saskatoon is generally considered a great place to live and raise a family. Brittany, her family, and her friends all seemed to love life in Saskatoon, praising its welcoming people, strong facilities, and most importantly, the friendships it offered. Brittany valued her friends above everything else, and during high school she was known as an especially kind and outgoing girl. She was doing very well for herself, earning good grades, staying out of trouble, and maintaining a close circle of friends she knew she could rely on. At 18 years old, when this story unfolds, it was clear Brittany was eagerly anticipating the end of the school year, when she could finally begin college and pursue a business degree she had dreamed of for years. Brittany was highly goal-oriented and known for her strong critical thinking skills, which set her apart from many others her age, who were mainly focused on partying once they reached college. She planned to earn a business degree so she could manage hotels and perhaps even own some one day. To turn those ambitions into reality, Brittany took on multiple jobs. By doing this, she was able to save the money she needed for her education and give herself a strong start in life. One of her main jobs was at a nearby restaurant, where she worked while pursuing her degree and approached the role with surprising seriousness. Those who knew her described her as extremely driven, and her mother recalled how well Brittany balanced her school responsibilities with her life at home. She even worked at a local German cultural center when she wasn't busy running her pizza business. If anything, Brittany was deeply committed and nothing seemed capable of standing in the way of her goals. She worked incredibly hard and stayed focused on her responsibilities, yet still made time to spend with her friends. Her best friend was Cheyenne Antoine, a young woman close to her age, whom she had known for many years. They first met in 9th grade and quickly became close. Cheyenne's upbringing was very different from Brittany's, unfortunately. While they shared some similarities and common interests, life had not been as easy for Cheyenne as it had been for Brittany. Everything in Cheyenne's life was difficult from the very beginning. It was widely known that she had a traumatic childhood and her parents were believed to have been affected by Canada's boarding school system. Cheyenne's parents were forced into this system against their will and suffered severe consequences as a result. They endured years of mental and physical abuse, which left lasting scars on their lives and ultimately impacted their children as well, leaving them vulnerable and broken. It has been said that Cheyenne lost both of her parents at a very young age because of their involvement in these programs. Both of them eventually became heavily addicted to drugs and lived troubled lives. This cycle meant Cheyenne would face the same misfortune as her parents, being pulled into the very system that had destroyed them. Her life was never easy, and it seemed that no matter where she turned, things only became worse. When Cheyenne tried to reconnect with her mother after years apart, she encountered a new low unlike anything she had ever experienced. There are hardly enough words to capture how devastating addiction can be. Most people understand this, and far too many have witnessed it firsthand. Cheyenne among them. She was removed from her family out of concern for her safety due to her mother's drug use, and was eventually placed into foster care as time went on. Cheyenne always tried to maintain contact with her mother, though she kept a safe distance. As she entered her teenage years, her desire to reconnect grew stronger. Despite making many attempts to reach out, her mother showed little interest, so consumed by her addiction that it was as if Cheyenne didn't even exist. It's important to remember that Cheyenne's mother was also a victim, as years of heavy drug use destroyed her life. At the same time, she was an adult capable of making her own decisions, and she repeatedly chose the wrong path, with Cheyenne bearing the consequences. After being placed in foster care, Cheyenne suffered both physical and emotional harm, much like her parents had before her. The key difference was that Cheyenne tried to work on herself and heal from both her past and present trauma, something her parents never had the chance to do. Her situation worsened when she was just 15 years old, when her mother finally gave up drugs and passed away, leaving Cheyenne to face the world on her own. Already overwhelmed, she felt she had nowhere to turn and was drawn toward the same destructive habits her mother had followed after her death. Before long, Cheyenne began associating with questionable people, and within a few months she developed an addiction herself. In contrast, Brittany had the support of her mother, which Cheyenne lacked. By this point, the bond between Cheyenne and Brittany had grown much stronger. Cheyenne simply wanted a friend who would listen and stand by her, and Brittany wanted the same. By March 2015, both had been studying intensely for their end-of-year exams and were eager to go out and unwind for a while. On the evening of March 23rd, they met up and took some photos to share on social media. It's unclear what their full plans were for the night. The photos were taken just before they headed out, and neither of them knew that for one of them, it would be the last night alive between 12 and midnight on March 24th. Brittany and Cheyenne went to the home of a family friend, Tasha Story, and asked her for petrol money before continuing on their way. Tasha was happy to help and went a step further, telling the girls they could call her anytime that night if they needed anything, and she would come. She even offered to pick them up at any hour, no matter where they were. After giving them a hug, the two friends left. Investigators say they don't know exactly where the girls went after that, but they did post the photo above on social media at 12:02 a.m. on March 24th. After that post, no one heard from Brittany again. She never answered her phone, replied to messages, or interacted on social media. This was the last time anyone had contact with her. At exactly 6:02 a.m., 6 hours later, a driver traveling on a quiet road outside Saskatoon noticed something unusual on the side of the road. As he drove past, he was startled and had to look twice. He was convinced he saw the body of a young woman lying there. He turned his car around to take a closer look. Even though part of him hoped he was mistaken, he soon realized the truth. He had stumbled upon a crime scene, rushing to help the young woman. He quickly discovered that she was cold and unresponsive. All efforts to revive the young woman failed. She was missing her shoes. Police were quickly dispatched to the scene, but by the time they arrived, their role was limited to collecting evidence and beginning the investigation. Officers on site immediately suspected foul play, sensing that something was wrong with the scene. Upon closer examination, they noticed clear signs of trauma around her neck, indicating a violent act. Before fully combing the area for clues, they discovered a leather jacket, a woman's watch, and an unusual belt left nearby. The most troubling part was that, at this stage, the police had no idea who the young woman was.
Friends helped identify the victim after police released images of her tattoos and clothing.
Unlock the world's largest, most
Damn. That shit crazy, chat. Man, that shit crazy.
Stars, hoping these images could help identify her. They shared the photos with local news outlet, seeking public assistance. Fortunately for the investigation, it didn't take long for the police to confirm her identity. Tasha Story saw the images on the news that morning and was completely unprepared for what she saw. She immediately recognized the tattoos as Brittany's. Just a few hours earlier, Brittany had been at her house, full of energy and in a great mood. She had told Brittany to call her if she ever needed anything. Shocked and unsure what else to do, Tasha called the police. Officers quickly confirmed that the body found earlier that morning was indeed Brittany Gago. Once they identified her, they moved fast to figure out what had happened that night. First checking social media for clues about Cheyenne, they came across the photo Brittany had taken the night before. Cheyenne had also posted on Brittany's Facebook wall just before police found the picture, asking, "Where are you? Haven't heard from you. Hope you made it home safe." Police realized this meant the two had been together on the night Brittany was attacked. So they began their investigation by focusing on Cheyenne. The police visited Cheyenne to get her account of what had happened that night, hoping to piece together the events leading up to Brittany's death. According to her, the evening had started out like a fairly typical night out in Saskatoon, though there were some unusual details. Cheyenne mentioned that the two girls had been hopping from bar to bar throughout the night. How they managed to get into multiple bars while underage remains unclear, but somehow they succeeded, highlighting both their determination and the risky choices they made. Their night began around midnight and continued until roughly 4 a.m. During that time, they were invited to a local house party by a man they didn't know well, who appeared to be in his 30s. What happened at the party is murky, even to Cheyenne, who admitted that the events afterward were a blur. She recalled that she and Brittany separated shortly after 4 a.m., with Cheyenne being dropped off at an assisted living center where she was visiting her uncle. This marked the last clear memory she had of being with Brittany that night, leaving much of the timeline uncertain. When the police questioned Cheyenne's uncle, he confirmed her story, stating that he had indeed seen Cheyenne around 4 a.m. that morning. But as for Brittany, where had she gone after that? For several days, the investigation seemed to stall as the authorities tried to piece together her final movements. Meanwhile, Brittany's body was sent for a thorough forensic examination, and when the results came back, they stunned everyone involved in the case. The autopsy revealed that Brittany had died from strangulation, specifically from being choked with a black belt, the same belt that had been left at the crime scene. Investigators were puzzled. If the attack had been premeditated, why would the perpetrator leave behind such a clear piece of evidence? It seemed careless, almost reckless, for someone trying to avoid capture. At that moment, the police felt they had a critical breakthrough. They understood both the cause of death and the weapon used, which gave them hope that the investigation could finally move forward and justice could be pursued. The next step for investigators was to link the perpetrator directly to the weapon, and at first, the case seemed to be falling into place. The black belt was sent for detailed analysis and 2 DNA profiles were discovered on it. One matched Brittany as expected and the other appeared to belong to the potential suspect. Everything seemed to be lining up perfectly until the investigation hit a confusing snag. This was the point when police began sensing that something wasn't quite right. Multiple witnesses who had seen Brittany and Cheyenne that night gave statements, but their accounts didn't align. According to Cheyenne, the girls had started their evening at a bar called the Manchester Brew Pub and ended it at the Colonial Pub and Grill, where they eventually went their separate ways. Yet when investigators compared this version of events with other testimonies, inconsistencies emerged, making the timeline and details of that night increasingly murky. It became clear that the police focused on visiting these 2 bars to piece together the girls that night and to see if anyone had witnessed them. Their investigation at the Manchester Brew Pub went smoothly. They didn't uncover anything groundbreaking, but they were able to confirm that Brittany and Cheyenne had indeed been there that evening. However, things started to look suspicious when the investigators went to the Colonial Pub and Grill. Robin Ritter, a senior Crown investigator, later explained that it didn't take long for him to realize that the girls' alleged visit to the Colonial Pub had likely never happened. This revelation put Cheyenne squarely under suspicion. Up to that point, the investigation had been largely based on the account Cheyenne had provided. But this inconsistency made detectives question the accuracy and honesty of her story, shifting the focus of the inquiry toward her. It didn't take long for detectives to realize that Cheyenne wasn't being entirely truthful. If she had lied about where they went that night, what else might she have been hiding? Sensing that more deception could be involved, the police decided to take a different approach. That day, they chose to speak with Cheyenne's uncle, who lived in an assisted living facility. Once they began questioning him about the night Brittany disappeared, it quickly became evident that he knew very little about what actually happened. Within minutes, it was clear that the story he had previously told the police was false. Ultimately, he admitted that he had lied, explaining that he had done so to protect his sister, unaware of how much his false account might complicate the investigation. So what really happened that night? According to her uncle, Cheyenne had approached him and asked him to lie for her, hoping to cover her tracks. She explained that she and Brittany had spent the evening with a dangerous group of men and had ended up following 2 of them to a motel, lured by the promise of drugs and alcohol. Cheyenne allegedly told her uncle that a fight broke out among the 4 over the substances. In the middle of the chaos, she left the room to use the bathroom. When she returned, she discovered Brittany lying dead on the hotel bed. Panic set in immediately as the situation had escalated far beyond anything she could have anticipated. To make matters worse, the men threatened her with a gun and claimed they would help conceal the crime, leaving Cheyenne terrified and trapped in a nightmare she had never imagined. The events Cheyenne described seemed to have a profound effect on her, but detectives soon discovered that the entire story was fabricated. Nothing she claimed had actually occurred. The investigation found no evidence that any incident had taken place at the motel, nor any proof that the girls had even been there that night, much less with 2 adult men. Her tale, it seemed, was completely false. About 5 weeks later, Cheyenne was arrested for shoplifting and held in a nearby jail. Detectives saw this as an opportunity to question her while she awaited trial, hoping she might finally tell the truth about the night Brittany died. However, she refused to speak at all. When asked about the events surrounding Brittany's death, she remained completely silent, offering no answers to the police. But this was exactly the lead the lawyers had been waiting for. Even though the police didn't yet have a wealth of concrete evidence, it became clear they were on the right track. They knew Cheyenne held more information than she was revealing, so they decided to monitor her closely, observing from a distance in the hope that she would eventually slip up and reveal something that could advance the investigation.
I dare you to let me build you a completely free
Hey man, say man, this shit's starting to get real.
Family. The aunt revealed that on the night Brittany went missing, Cheyenne had shown up at her house. She was visibly intoxicated, extremely upset, and terrified. While it was difficult for the aunt to fully understand what Cheyenne was saying, she did manage to hear a chilling statement. Cheyenne mentioned something about having killed her friend and specifically said Brittany's name, providing a critical piece of information that tied her directly to the crime. This crucial information was promptly passed to the police by Brittany's family, and Cheyenne's aunt cooperated fully, sharing everything she knew about that night. Despite this, Cheyenne herself continued to refuse any cooperation with law enforcement. 6 months later, she posted on social media about Brittany, writing, "I miss you so much. You came and visited me in my dream last night. You were way too young to go." Yet at the same time, she continued to deny any knowledge of her friend's death. 2 more years passed with little progress in the case, but detectives finally uncovered a final piece of evidence that completely broke the investigation wide open. Remarkably, this key clue had been right in front of them all along over the previous 2 years, overlooked amid the chaos. Detective Ritter explained that in 2017, his team had a breakthrough while reviewing old photos from the start of the investigation. Something unusual immediately caught their attention. You may recall that Brittany and Cheyenne had posted a photo on Facebook just before heading out that night. You may also remember that investigators had recovered a leather jacket, a woman's watch, and a black braided belt at the crime scene. When they examined the photo closely, they noticed something shocking. Cheyenne was wearing that same black braided belt, the very one used to kill her best friend. For nearly 3 years, the police had this piece of the puzzle in plain sight, yet they hadn't made the connection. This single photo finally cracked the case wide open, and the shocking part was that the police had had it all along. The image had even been shared publicly on social media the entire time, yet nobody had noticed the belt. If you recall, investigators had already collected a DNA sample from that belt years earlier, but only when they finally compared it to Cheyenne's did they get a match, confirming her involvement beyond doubt. Cheyenne was undeniably responsible, but the bigger question remained. Why? The 2 girls had been inseparable best friends. How could a night out spiral into such a horrific tragedy? With the evidence mounting, Cheyenne was finally willing to speak. She admitted that she and Brittany had attended a house party that evening, where they gained access to alcohol and other illegal substances, setting the stage for the tragic events that followed. Cheyenne admitted that both she and Brittany had been extremely intoxicated throughout the night. The last time she saw Brittany was around 4:30 a.m., when they had gone to a nearby McDonald's. She recalled that the two had an argument around that time, though she couldn't remember what the fight was about. It all remained a blur. Cheyenne said she passed out shortly afterward and had no memory of the events that followed. When she woke up a few hours later, she sensed that something terrible had occurred, but she couldn't piece together what it was. Despite the murky details, everyone agreed that Cheyenne had killed her best friend and then, shockingly, forgotten about it. Detective Ritter described the case as particularly frustrating, noting that one of the most challenging aspects of the investigation was Cheyenne's reluctance to ever fully admit to her actions. There's still no definitive proof to determine whether what happened that night was a tragic accident or something far more deliberate. To this day, Cheyenne has never fully explained what happened to Brittany. It's possible that even she doesn't completely know the truth. As difficult as it is to consider, the events may have been an unintended consequence of drugs or alcohol. Yet it's also clear that Cheyenne made the conscious decision to use illegal substances that night, placing both herself and her best friend in a dangerous situation. When it comes to responsibility, one fact stands out. Cheyenne made the first choice to take the drugs, and her decisions ultimately led to her best friend's death.
And the sentence that she received was a joint submission sentence agreed upon by the Crown and defense, the judge accepting it, meaning that Antoine will serve a 7-year sentence for manslaughter. Now, she was originally charged with second-degree murder, but pleaded guilty to the lesser-included offense of manslaughter.
This is just a tragic situation where drug and alcohol use exploded. My client had some very deep-seated personal issues that she was not dealing with, and unfortunately, for whatever reason we'll never know, they turned into a very tragic situation for all involved. There's a significant memory loss. There's memory up to a certain point of the evening between my client and her friend, and unfortunately, the pertinent time when the offense actually occurred, there is no memory.
Prosecutors initially sought to charge her with second-degree murder, but the evidence wasn't sufficient for such serious charges to hold. As a result, they reached a plea deal in which Cheyenne admitted to less severe charges related to Brittany's death, acknowledging her role without facing the full weight of a murder conviction. Cheyenne was ultimately found guilty and sentenced to 7 years in prison. Brittany's stepmother captured the heartbreak of the situation best when reflecting on that night, saying that Brittany was a wonderful young woman whose life was tragically cut short, leaving a lasting void for everyone who knew and loved her.
We're so grateful, and so thankful that the investigators that have been working on this for almost 2 years never gave up hope, because it was very hard for us at times to keep that hope up. Yeah, the details are not going to be pretty. I'm raising her 7-year-old sister who has a lot of questions and doesn't understand, so that's difficult. Brittany was very happy, joyful. She loved her family. She has 4 younger sisters. She loved her friends. She spent as much time with them as she could. She was a wonderful person whose life was cut short, and it's not fair. It's just not fair.
Brittany Gargle was more than a headline. She was a daughter, a friend, and a life taken far too soon. May she rest in peace, and may her family find strength and healing. If you believe her story deserves to be remembered, please like, share, and subscribe, so her voice and others like hers are never forgotten. And I will see you guys in the next video.
Yeah, man, that video was crazy. But nah, I'm about to start back streaming gaming content. Also gonna be looking at cop videos, true crime videos. I'm gonna be doing just chatting. But yeah, I just wanted to come back, get a little stream going for the day or tonight. But like I said, I'm about to double back. Like, this shit about to really take off. I've been having a lot of shit going on, but shit's starting to slow up for me. But I'm back on in the morning. I'ma holla at y'all.